You're going to see new things that the universe is doing that we never realized. Stars are going to be changing in brightness. Black holes are going to be burping out material because they've just consumed a star. So suddenly what feels like you just go outside and you look up at this night sky and it's this very static thing. Actually, it's this dynamic, alive thing that all these really cataclysmic events are happening all around us and we just never realized. So we are, again, a week away from this thing coming online, and it's going to change astronomy forever.
You're listening to The Last Easy Mile, a show for men who know there's more waiting but aren't sure where to begin. I'm Josh Farahi. Whether it's carving out space for adventure, being a more present and intentional father, reconnecting with your physical edge, or rediscovering a forgotten skill, this podcast is about moving from stuck to in motion. Each episode explores that in-between moment, right before the leap, when the excuses run out and something real needs to begin. We cover fatherhood, work, faith, creativity, and what it means to keep showing up, especially when no one's coming to rescue you. Welcome to The Last Easy Mile. Let's walk it together. Before I kind of jump in and introduce you formally, I know you've been at it a long time. Maybe I'll just brag about you here for a minute if you don't mind.
Sure.
You started your career as a software developer, right? And eventually you kind of shifted your focus and you founded a Universe Today in 1999. Just really as a newsletter to covering space science and astronomy news. And, over time, that grew into one of the most popular independent space news platforms with millions of monthly readers. And the site is known for its clear, accessible reporting from complex topics, from rocket launching to black hole theories. And it wasn't until later in the early 2000s where in 2006, you launched the Astronomy Cast as a co-host on the podcast with Dr. Pamela Gay. You guys have over 700 episodes and are widely regarded as one of the best science communication podcasts available. Your tagline, putting science in your brain, I think you guys really do a good job of that.
It's not a thing we say.
That's
Maybe it's
right.
the thing that ChatGPT told you we say. Okay.
It's not a thing you say?
Nope.
Oh, I could have sworn. No, it's not ChatGPT. I wrote it in my notes.
No, we say, maybe Pamela says that sometime. No, the big thing is saying what we know, not only what we know, but how we know what we know.
Right. I could have sworn, with every guest I have on, I spend at least 5 or 10 hours going through their background. I think I had my first guest was a gentleman who wrote a book about backpack hunting, and then I have another gentleman by the name of Kute Blackson, who's an inspirational kind of a writer and speaker, and I read his book. So I do put the time in. So if I got that wrong, I apologize.
No, it's fine. It's fine. It's interesting. It's fascinating to hear you sort of describe my life. I'm enjoying it. Please keep going.
Okay, well, I'm about to wrap. And then later, I guess, you started your YouTube live streams, and which I enjoy. And actually, my brother, who is helping me with this podcast, he's like, I can't believe you got Fraser to come on. I've been watching his stuff since I was a kid, and so he's super amped. So shout out to Craig. He's going to be excited to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, you should let him know, like you just asked.
Yeah, I did tell him that. I said, listen, I just asked, and Fraser was gracious enough to respond to my emails, and I'm an unknown commodity at this point. I mean, for all you know, I'm some weirdo that's trying to waste your time. But thank God I'm not. And you guys have a successful, really super successful YouTube channel with almost 500,000 subscribers. So kudos to you. And I love your stuff. So keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you so much.
So look, the point of this is really just to get people to understand why the cosmos still matters, right? And I remember when I was a kid, I grew up in a rural area. I would look up at the sky, and it humbled me and gave me perspective. But I think have we lost that? What's your perspective on that?
I live in this bubble where people are coming on to the channel and they're commenting on the videos, and I'm talking to astronomers. So I don't have any barometer of what the kind of larger attitude is towards space and astronomy. You look at the number of people who are watching live streams of mission launches or talking about what's happening. The new pictures coming from James Webb. You see kids asking questions in science centers about space and astronomy. So, there's lots of TikTokers that are talking about stuff about space and astronomy. So I can't tell you whether or not the attitudes about space and astronomy have changed. One indicator is that people who run astronomical societies, these are, groups of amateur astronomers who get together and talk about their telescopes and share pictures that they've taken and so on. They seem to be just aging out. There's that every meeting, it's just older and older people, and not this influx of young people that are coming into the hobby. And so that part of it does, but maybe that's just that people are now feel like they can get everything they need from various electronic sources, and they don't have to connect with other human beings and sit in boring meetings and talk about, watch slideshows and stuff. So I don't know. But I think when you talk to anybody about space, when people ask me at a party or whatever, people ask me what I do. I'm like, oh, I'm a space journalist. And they're like, oh, I love space. And I would say, like, of course you do. Everybody does, right? Like, nobody hates space. It's like kicking a puppy. Everyone loves space. And that's just a great place to begin a conversation, because then, for me, I can, whatever they're curious or wondering about or feel in awe of, I can help them explore those ideas and talk about them in ways that will blow their mind, and that's all great. So no, I don't feel like there's any kind of loss of fascination with space. If anything, with the return to space, with the potential return to the moon, with all of the stuff that's happening not only in the US but in Europe and China, there's a lot of really interesting work that's being done. I think enthusiasm is at an all-time high.
Yeah. I think there's something to that. The world has become much more accessible. The space has become much more accessible for folks. And my kids are, I have 3 young kids. They're super fascinated with it. I'm here in SoCal. It's a big city. The night sky isn't so bright.
Yeah.
So which sucks, right? Because I grew up like I said, out in the woods, and the night was like a jewel box, which was such a privilege. But for somebody that hasn't been in astronomy, want to get their kid involved, want themselves to get involved, what would you say to kind of get them to take that first step? What could they do?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really important as a parent to identify that is a real interest of your kid. That, a lot of the times we as parents will project our interests onto our children and then try to push a hobby that maybe they're just not that into. So you've got to work your way into just figuring out what it is that they enjoy. And I think at the heart of it, it's our onus as parents to accurately identify the things that our children are fascinated with, and then help them lean into those interests and not make them feel like those interests are weird or ridiculous or are not dumb or whatever, right? And I think if you're lucky, the interests of your children really align with the things that you're into. But you may end up with a situation that your kid is into things that you're just not into, and that's too bad for you. Get into them, because it's that's the thing that they're into. And so I was really lucky. My kids were into video games, and my kids were into role-playing games, and my kids were into more sciencey related type stuff, but they were also into riding bikes and so all the stuff that I liked to do. And so, but there's, specifically video games that my kids aren't interested in, or there's specific video games that my kids might really like. And it's my onus as a parent to play the game through so that I can provide a proper critique and tell them, I didn't like it because I don't like bullet hell games, right? Yeah, you got to be able to give them not just because you're just sort of devaluing their interests. So I just want to set that as
Sure. I appreciate that.
So that first filter is that your kid, you've gone to a space, a planetarium, you've gone to a science center, you've watched, your kid is watching science fiction television shows or cartoons that they're running up against these ideas, and they are finding them interesting and fascinating, and they're curious in that way that, we all loved dinosaurs as a kid, or we all, right? So that's the thing that you need to be able to identify. And if you have that, then jackpot, right? Next, you can actually help them carry on that hobby. And then I think it's like getting a sense of I think one of the problems with astronomy is that a lot of the events, the things that are happening, require some tools to be able to actually appreciate them directly. That you can go outside and you can look up, and even in Southern California where you are, you can identify Saturn. Like it's there, it's in the sky. You can point it out, and it's a star in the sky, and that's Saturn. And over there's Jupiter, and over there's Mars, and that's Mercury down on the horizon, and there's Venus, and most people don't even realize that what they thought were just stars are actually planets.
Planets, right?
Right. And it's when you look at one of those objects with a telescope that now you see the rings of Saturn. Now you see the bands across the surface of Jupiter. You see the moons of Jupiter. You see how Venus goes through a crescent. So I think it's then turning this into a tangible hobby, a tangible activity that you can actually do. And there's stuff you can do with your own eye. I mean, you can go into all of this stuff. Right? Like I'm happy to go into as much detail and practical advice as you want to go. But the point just being that there are things you can do with your own eyes. There's places you can go to learn more about this. And then there's things you can do with very small amounts of gear. And there's things that you can do that are vacations. You have to go to a specific place to be able to see it. And then there's stuff that requires heavier investment into gear to really kind of take it to the next level. But you see people buying really fancy go-karts for their kids. Like people are willing to invest in hobbies with their children if they feel like this is a thing that they're into.
Right. No, thanks for that. I think what you said is important, is kind of identifying what your kid is into first instead of trying to shove it towards them too hard. But I found that with my kids, because they want to be kind of into what we're into, we kind of have a head start. So you just got to make it fascinating. Like I sat with my son, and he read a book for his school. He's in second grade on Neil Armstrong, right? So I read the book with him, and then we watched like a film, a documentary on it. And then we went outside, and I pointed at the moon, and I go, look at that. That's what you're talking about. It's right there.
Yeah.
And so after that, kind of the light bulb went off. I want to look at stars. I'm like, okay, well, I got an app, Skyview, I don't know, or Skyline. It's a app you get on your phone. You can point it up to the sky, and it points out what you want. That's real helpful for us in the city. Yep. I'm pointing out the North Star, and so I think it's important for kids to have that because space, again, it gives you a little bit of a groundedness, right? When you look up in the sky, and it gives you a kind of, we've lost that, at least in the city, where like we don't look up anymore. And so,
why bother? It's light pollution.
That's right. And so I want my kids to have the space is humbling in a positive way. And, I want to invest in that more. And I think your advice is good on that. What was the first time you looked up in the sky and were like, oh my God, this is...
Well, so where I grew up, like I live on the west coast of Canada, and I grew up in extremely dark skies. So like you, I would walk out my back door, look up, and I would see the Milky Way and all of the stars. And it was, on clear nights, it was breathtaking. And so I can't remember the first time. And I can't remember the first time my parents had me participate in various night sky watching, because, as far as I can remember, we were watching meteor showers. As far as I can remember, we were watching lunar eclipses. Like there were all of these events that we were watching and my parents were, we would watch Star Trek on the television, and we would, so it all came together. There was science fiction on the bookshelves, and I would be able to pick up books and read them when I got older. So it's all just as long as I can remember.
Nice. And you say, so I want to go back to the role-playing games, just because I grew up playing role-player games. It's not as big in my neck of the woods now. What would you play, D&D or, with your kids and when you were younger?
Yeah, all of them. So I mean, my background is I actually used to write for role-playing game companies. So I've been playing role-playing games since I was...
Oh, wow. Did you really?
10? Yeah. Okay. I was 10 years old. I have some games that I wrote sort of back in this back corner behind me.
No way.
Yeah. If people have played Shadowrun, I wrote an Earth Dawn. I wrote source books for them back when I was like 23 years old.
Seriously,
or something.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So I started playing role-playing games, I guess, when I was maybe 10. I can remember, grade 5, I think. And it was Dungeons and Dragons back at the time. But then, by the time I was 18, I was organizing role-playing game conventions in my city. I was writing for various
I didn't know
publishers.
Yeah, interesting.
So and then organized, had a great group of guys and women that we played role-playing games with every week. And I worked in a game store and sold games to people and comic books and stuff.
Oh, you were immersed in the culture.
Totally immersed in the culture. Yeah. Yeah. And then, sort of, it was like a side journey to go into the software internet development side.
I see.
Away from that. Just because it was, it was hard work and there wasn't a lot of money and had a long journey ahead. And I had a lot of other interests, video games, things like that I was interested in. So, most people, when you have the kids and they're interested in this kind of thing, then you can run games for them, right? So you can be the dungeon master or have their friends, have your kids' friends come and join the game. And so we would run games as kids. And then as they got older and they moved out of the house, we now run a game every week. We all show up at one of my kids' places, and they've got a bunch of their friends that come by, and I'm the dungeon master. And the game is very complicated, and it's very political with all kinds of nuance and gray areas of moral judgments and decisions that the players have to make. Like you're able to raise the complexity of the game to adapt to the capabilities of the kids. In the beginning, it's very much sort of silliness and and them realizing that they could just like want things to happen and things will happen in this imaginary world, and they're exercising their imaginations. And then later on, you're now exploring these deeper themes in narration and storytelling, and the kids are having a good time, I think. Anyway, So
I mean, the thing is with these kids, my kids this age, in this day and age, they have so much. Everything is in their face, right? You got the iPad, you got the screens, you got the computer, and so they don't have a time to be bored and time to imagine. And so I'm so happy to hear that there's others out there that are I got to sit down and maybe play a few games with my
son. It's one of the most I can remember as a kid playing Dungeons and Dragons and playing other role-playing games, and there was nothing like it. There was nothing that would expand my imagination, and you would be in this collaborative, imaginative world with other people, and it was as close, it was better than virtual, whatever's the virtual reality today. And so when you play these games I don't know, Skyrim and things like that, they are a pale shadow. They are
agreed.
They are just a really crappy version compared to what a real role-playing game is like. And that I think, a lot of people are saying the video games are pretty good at this point. No, they're not. They're garbage compared to what is possible. But it is a muscle. It's a skill. You have to practice. You have to you have to look at other people. And there's a great sort of ecosystem of people on YouTube that are talking about role-playing games and talking about how to be a better dungeon master and how to make the encounters more entertaining and all of that, right? And that when the players have creative ideas about how they want to overcome some kind of challenge in the game, and it has repercussions and villains show up later on, and you don't get that in a video game. So
it's scripted. That's the problem.
It's totally
right?
scripted.
It's linear.
Yeah, it's linear and super limited, and that you're relying on this low resolution garbage sort of depiction of the events that are happening in the thing. And it tends to be very mechanistic. You're seeing a monster, you're killing the monster, you're taking his treasure, you're finding the monster, you're killing the monster, you're taking his treasure. That's a video game, right? As opposed to you're seeing a monster, you're understanding his backstory, you're having a conversation with him, you're realizing that things are deeper, that he's facing challenges of his own, you ally with him to be able to help him solve his problems. That makes you, and so on and so forth, right? And that's a real narrative thing that right now the best video games can't even compare. And so I think that but your kids have no idea what's possible. And so they're going to be locked into this expectation that what a role-playing game is it's kind of like a video game, but why do it? Because I could just sit in front of my iPad or sit in front of my computer and play the game. And they have no idea what they are missing out on. And again, it is kind of like your responsibility. If the kid is playing Skyrim, it's your job as a parent to show them something better than Skyrim. And that is running a Dungeons & Dragons game well for your kids. And if you're not great at it, then you got to raise your game so that it is good, so that they are compelled, so that they can't wait. So they're talking about the game with their friends. They can't wait. More friends are showing up. They can't wait to play the next session next week to continue on.
Right. It's that it kind of the tie-in here with space, if there is like the endless limitation of possibility, right? And making your kids go on the frontier of what their reality and push that frontier forward, right? So when you look at space, anything can happen. There's so much out there. It's infinite. They got to think about that and as much as a human being can try to understand it. And then, use that same wonder with role-playing games. It's like anything can happen. The world is limitless. And I think that arena for kids is a super healthy, good place. And so I'm an 80s kid. So, I had all that, I had boredom, I had role-playing games, I had, the night sky. And it's like, I almost feel like everything's so sterile now. Everything is so linear.
Yeah, kids these days. I mean, I have all kinds of insights chatting with my kids at this point, but it feels very much like we're trying to help. They want to try and figure out what they missed. My kids now as young 20-year-olds, and they do things where they'll spend the whole weekend and not have their phones. Right. Or they'll cut themselves off from technology to go out into nature and stuff. And this is now like something that they're discovering. And I think it's really hard once you've handed an iPad to your 4-year-old to keep them entertained while you're attempting to do your taxes to unring that bell later on. Right. And then you're like, okay, I know you really enjoy playing on the iPad and all the little lights and so, but we need to go outside and watch a salamander now. And you're like, oh, I don't want to, Dad. I want to play on the iPad. Right. I don't care about the salamander. And then later on, you're, 21 years old, and you're noticing a salamander while you're walking along the road or the pathway, and you're like, why didn't I ever go and watch that salamander? What's wrong with me?
Yeah.
And so it's very interesting to sort of see those boundaries that you tried to set down as a parent early on. You tried to guide them in the ways that because you could tell that they weren't enjoying their time, or that they were sort of trapped in this loop. And my kids are even before the TikTok era, right? They were playing Minecraft, and they were playing video games, and they were watching YouTube. But the current generation, I think, is even more locked in, and it's really tricky. Yeah. And I think you're going to find early on, all you can, like, if you can either be the parent that won't let them use all those screens, and that's rough because you're like a monster, and right, or you can be the parent that gives them just unlimited access to all those screens, and then don't worry, the screens will gladly parent them through their entire youth, and you've got all this time on your hands, but you've got to follow this middle road, this narrow path where you are
threading a needle for sure.
Yeah, totally. And you're putting the screens in front of them, and you're saying, here's the screen, here's the consequences, and then here's the ways you're going to feel when you realize that this is not good, and we've got to navigate this stuff together. But you've got to know that they're not going to listen to you and all of that, right? So it's always so tricky to make your way and navigate through that. And I think that the way you intervene is that you, again, identify the things your kids are really interested in, and then you take those to 11, right? If they're into video games, let's mod video games. If they're into watching television shows, let's find lists of the best television shows and let's critique them. If they're into music, let's sample music from different times, or let's go to museums, or let's watch documentaries about the musicians that made the music and what the time was like. And then let's look into the things that were happening in the world when the music was being created. Like, I think at each point you have an opportunity to deepen a relationship with your kid and help them learn more about their hobbies and their interests at a deeper level, that sort of nerding, obsessed level, which I think is vital for everybody, right? Like, I don't, like, if I meet a person and they're not obsessed about stuff, I'm like, what's wrong with you?
Yeah, that's right.
Right? Why aren't you deeply, like, my wife is really into bugs, really into insects. And, when we met, she has this incredible camera set up with this big long lens, and we would go into the jungle and take pictures of bugs. And I'm just like, oh my God, this woman is amazing, right? Right. Look at these pictures she's taking. She'll be there for 3 hours, hunched over an ant nest trying to get every single picture of the ants doing every activity
cool.
that they do. And you can
Right.
see the sunlight glinting off their little eyeballs and stuff. And I'm just like, yeah, this woman is the best, right? because of that level of detail and obsession. And I think interesting people have interests, and it's really important to help your kids find those interests and really thrive in them. Hopefully they gel with yours, but if they don't, again, that's on you to.
That's on you. Yeah.
You know,
I gotta say, maybe I'm lucky, and with I have 3 little kiddos. My oldest is 8, but I've found that if they kind of want to be like you already, and maybe it's because I'm like a grown up kid myself. Like I'm still into kid stuff. Like
Me too.
I love
Yep.
space. I'm like I find it so fascinating. I try to keep up on the news. I love video games. I still play with my son, and my wife, wants to wring both of our necks. And I still love going out in the woods and camping, and we're going somewhere this weekend. So that helps. Like when you're still a little kid yourself, I think it's a helpful thing. But I think your advice is right on. You got to let them find something that they like and lean into it.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's great. What's really cool that's happening right now in the space world? I know there's a lot. I know it's probably the most exciting time to be into this field and into the cosmos right now and the stars, because I think the peak of our society may have been at the moon landings in the 60s, and now there's kind of a re-ignition of interest, with Elon doing what he's doing, and he's bringing all that in focus. And then our technology is just so incredible. There's so many things we're working on. What are like the top 2 or 3 things right now that you're just super excited about?
Well, there's just too many. We report on 30 to 40 interesting stories every week on Universe Today. I'm talking about probably 10 of them on Space Bites every week on my YouTube channel. Right. It goes on and on and on. I would say that the big things right now obviously are all of the images that are coming back from the James Webb Space Telescope. It is just the most powerful telescope that humanity's ever built. It's put it into the perfect place to be able to view the cosmos, and it's looking back in time to the very beginning of the universe, just galaxies assembling themselves just a few 100 million years after the Big Bang itself, as well as directly observing exoplanets, measuring the atmospheres of planets, watching as star systems are forming, looking through all the gas and dust into the center of the Milky Way. It's incredible. It's an amazing tool, and we're still only 3 years into what is going to be at least 10 years, probably more like 20 years of productive science coming out of this thing.
Sure, yeah. Well, they just put that thing up there recently.
Well, 3 years ago?
Yeah. So it's brand new, right?
Ish.
In the science world, it's relatively new.
And then on Mars, we have 2 SUV-sized rovers that are roaming around on the surface of Mars. They're examining rocks, taking samples, taking pictures, giving us just a better insight into the history and current state of Mars than anything we ever had before. So Perseverance and Curiosity are mind-blowing what they're capable of. And Perseverance brought a helicopter with it, and the helicopter was flying around and acting like a scouting mission for
it's amazing.
Perseverance. Yeah, incredible. Yeah. And then the thing that I'm most excited about, and probably by the time people watch this, listen to this, it will have happened, and that is the completion, the first light of the Vera Rubin Observatory, which is down in Chile. And this is a enormous telescope that has the largest camera that's ever been made. Largest, I guess like 3,400 megapixel camera. So it's a 3.4 gigapixel camera. Wow. And it takes a shot of the entire night sky every 3 days or so. So it just takes a picture, 15 seconds, takes a picture, 15 seconds, takes a picture. And these are like really deep, really high resolution images. And then 3 days later, it comes back around and does it again. And so over the course of its 10-year mission, it's going to take 8,000 pictures of every single spot in the sky that it can see. And what you're going to do then is you're going to see everything that happened over time. So you literally could run a movie of that part of the sky over 10 years and have 8,000 frames of that little spot in the sky, and you'll see supernova going off. You'll see asteroids moving through the field of view. You'll see Planet 9, wherever it is out there. You're going to see new things that the universe is doing that we never realized. Stars are going to be changing in brightness. Black holes are going to be burping out material because they've just consumed a star. So suddenly what feels like you just go outside and you look up at this night sky and it's this very static thing. Actually, it's this dynamic, alive thing that all these really cataclysmic events are happening all around us and we just never realized. So we are, again, a week away from this thing coming online, and it's going to change astronomy forever. And it's the thing that I've been most excited about for a decade. And have
really,
and now here we are, just a few days away, and
that's exciting.
We're about to get rolling. Yeah.
So what makes this? I guess what you're saying, so I could kind of frame it is, it's not just the power of the telescope; it's the fact that it can put the sky in motion.
Yeah, it's a video versus
request,
a picture,
right?
Yeah,
and that it changes the game because we're looking at static pictures right now of a moment in time, but if you have this thing putting it all together, gives you kind of more of another dimension of an understanding. Am I understanding that right?
Yeah, it's exactly it, right? So it is a video versus compared to a picture. Wow, imagine if you took a picture of, I don't know, of a city, and then that was that. Or someone captured an image of the city once a week for 8,000 weeks, and then you just watched the video and watched how the city changed over time.
That's amazing. That is exciting.
Yeah,
so where
it's
can
super
folks,
exciting.
Where can I, because I'm like super geek out on this stuff. Where can I go, and are they publishing those photos weekly? Or are they not? Or monthly?
It's so many pictures that I think they're gonna detect hundreds of thousands of events every night. So they have live streams that they're setting up where you'll be able to sort of watch the flow of data go by and the various things that they're identifying, asteroids, supernova, things that are going off. And so there's going to be a lot of people that are figuring out ways to properly present this. So right now you're just going to get, hey, we've taken some, some cool pictures, right? Here's some cool pictures taken with the telescope. But, given time, people are going to figure out how to best present what is this, like I said, video versus pictures.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
I'm sure you're going to be doing a lot of episodes on that if you're this excited about it.
Oh,
so
yeah.
just
Yeah. Just you wait. Yeah, exactly. Follow me.
Let you curate it.
I'll tell you.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
What are some of the things out there that you think that the most of the scientists maybe don't have it right, or you have questions about, or some mysteries that you're like, wait a second, that doesn't sound right to me?
Well, so I think that's a really dangerous place to come from to say that.
Okay.
Because I am just a journalist. I'm an amateur. I am, it's my job to report on this. And I've been doing this for 26 years. But I'm not a scientist. I'm not an astronomer. I'm not a cosmologist. I'm not an astrophysicist. I'm not an astrobiologist. And I think that a lot of time people will see some field in science and then they'll follow their instinct and say like, well, I don't get it and I think it's wrong. And scientists are the experts. Scientists are the people who have dedicated their lives to unraveling these mysteries. And, an outside observer will look at the work that scientists are doing and they'll say, because I don't understand it, it's probably wrong. And there is this rise in a distrust of expertise that's going on in the US and really around the world.
I think that's a good point. Yeah.
And it's really dangerous because our entire modern society depends on the expertise, the people who make sure that the planes are safe to fly, the people who make sure that the food is safe to eat, the people who are watching the effects of the climate, the people who are watching weather systems unfold. And that, a person so either you could say, well, yeah, a person who's gone and studied hurricanes for their entire professional career and has run giant supercomputer simulations that have allowed them to successfully model the effects of hurricanes. And I'm sitting here and I'm just going like, yeah, I don't really get it. And it's probably wrong, is a profoundly sort of ill-informed way to approach these things.
Yeah, and lazy.
And lazy, yeah.
Lazy.
Right, exactly. So if you want to have skepticism about the scientific work that people are doing, the first thing that you have to do is you have to understand the work that they're doing to the level that they understand it, right? How can you critique? You walk over to a mechanic that's working on a car and you kind of hear the mechanic and you say, man, you're kind of doing it wrong. And the mechanic says, well, tell me what I'm doing wrong. And you're like, well, I don't know. Like, but it just seems wrong, right? Like you're in the wrong part of the car. Like, isn't the engine like over there? And the mechanic's like, well, yeah, but this is where the transmission is. And I'm working on the transmission right now because it's all hooked in. And you're like, oh yeah, I don't know. I don't really buy it. I'm not really into this, big mechanic. I think big mechanic money is in on this. So your onus as a person who is consuming the results of science, your job is to is to either you do the work to understand the science as well as the scientists, which is a multi-year process. Like you can get to a place where you can read any of the literature that's coming out from the scientific community and you can critique it. But that is a multi-year journey. That is you taking 10 years to learn the basics and learn all the math and then be able to do some of the more advanced topics and be able to then read the papers and go, the person forgot to consider the variable of this, that, and the other thing. And so that's why it's probably incorrect. And that, or if you don't have time for that, to be able to keep yourself completely appraised in every single scientific field simultaneously, then the next best thing is to trust the scientific consensus. And that is the sort of the gist, the zeitgeist of all of the scientists who are saying, there are 10,000 astronomers who are working in the field and they have been hammering each other on every single aspect on the habitability of Venus. And anyone who says that Venus is habitable, then other scientists are going, Venus is not habitable, and they just go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, and they critique each other's work. And if anybody puts their neck out too far, then people will question their underlying data and all of that. And that the scientific consensus is a rough approximation of truth, and you can feel pretty confident that if the scientific consensus is that the expansion rate of the universe isn't being measured properly, then you can feel safe that it is not being measured properly. And so generally those kinds of things you're saying, like what are stuff in space that you feel aren't true or whatever. Like I have no basis to be able to have any kind of opinion about that thing. What I start at first principles is to say, start by assuming that the scientific consensus is correct, and then use that as a place to educate yourself about things and become more and more interested. And, as you learn more, you may get to this place where you start to realize or identify what could be some cracks in the existing scientific consensus, and then, go ahead. But again, I've been doing this for 26 years. It has never happened to me once. Right? I've never gone, you know what? I think that's kind of wrong. And it turns out I was right. They were all wrong. Right? Instead, it turns out I didn't understand the state of the science well enough. And then as I educated myself more, I started to go and realize what it was that they were looking at. And I think that is if there's one skill or one, it's a profound sense of humility that I think we as the public, the consumers of the scientific work, have lost our perspective. And so, I'm particularly nervous about people offering up opinions about things in any scientific related topic without first recognizing the sort of the work that's gone into developing the scientific consensus.
I think. Well, first of all, I agree with that. But I guess the counter to that, and this is not in astronomy or astrophysics, I think where there's a lot of money invested and it's super political, I think that it muddies the water. Science, unfortunately, is the victim of money and politics, whereas I think astronomy and astrophysics and these fields, there's
It
still
depends
money
who
and
you
politics
ask.
in it. Yeah.
So I'm going to push back on you again. I think that
Okay.
there is a lot of money that is being spent to make people feel that that's true. I think there's a lot of money that is being spent by entrenched interests
Okay.
to decrease people's trust in experts for their own financial gain.
In your field as well,
Absolutely. In this field,
okay.
but especially in health, in climate science, all forms of farming, biology, in the way the food production system works, that often if there is a growing distrust in scientific expertise or just expertise in general, that you can follow the trail and realize who's spending the money to muddy the water. And it's not the scientists. It's
Right.
not the funding that's going to the science. It's other parties that stand to lose. You look at, say, Merchants of Doubt, which is this talking about how
Merchants of Doubt. I've never heard of them.
it's
What?
a book about sort of how people made delayed cigarette smoking, right?
Oh, yes.
Right.
Okay.
And that,
Okay.
the scientific consensus was cigarettes are bad for your health. And
Right.
yet there was all of these moneyed interests that were attempting to delay and, despite overwhelming evidence that smoking cigarettes is bad for your health, that there is this concerted effort, lobbying, funding, industry practices, ways to try to minimize so that they can make more money. So I think that again, like, it's a lot of the times when someone says, "Oh, there's like all kinds of political interests that are putting money into the funding the science and so on," it is actually there is some kind of outside force that is spending money to make us feel that way. And it's working like a charm. That trust in expertise has dropped to all-time lows, that that people would rather hear the like general advice from a complete non-expert on their Facebook page about how they should
Right.
cure their diabetes over the advice of their doctor. And that this has real world effects, harm that happens every day. Yeah.
No, I agree with that. I think, while I still think that there is some, I will partially disagree with you. I think you bring up a really good point. I think, I think the money is still pushing both sides. What I will kind of say is I think we have so much information at our fingertips. It's really the onus is on the individual to go out and to your point, educate themselves. Now, when you're talking about astronomy and astrophysics, that's a huge mountain to climb. But when there's easier science to understand, and you can't just go on Instagram or Facebook or TikTok or whatever your kind of drug of choice is, and then hear a 2-minute video about some guy, cherry picking data or just making stuff up.
Totally.
And be like, oh my God, this is that. Like, you got to have some, you don't just regurgitate someone else's information anymore. Like, I get tired of that.
Yeah. I mean, the best thing to do is get really good at reading, like understanding how research is like prepared and written, right?
Right.
That when you see a paper that says that drinking coffee is bad for your health, you have to say, what was the sample size? Okay, it was only 10 people, right? It was only 10 people. Okay, what were the was it a double-blind study? Was it and so there is, like, in medicine is very easy because there's this really beautiful sort of pyramid of scientific evidence, the way this works, that anecdotal evidence is the worst, and then you can have small studies, and then you can have large studies, and then you can have meta studies, and you sort of get meta studies of meta studies, and there's this, like, that the farther you go up this pyramid, the more you can trust the advice. Like, eating a lot of fruit and vegetables is probably pretty good for you, right? And that is something that's been tested over large studies, millions of people, over long periods of time, across many different studies, and you get to this place where these become well-established scientific studies because lots and lots of work has been done in this field. While you may see some story that comes on the mainstream media news that says that now it turns out that eating peanuts is bad for you, and it turns out it's tested on 10 mice.
Right.
And you're okay.
It's so common.
Right. And the media is like, media does a terrible job of reporting.
They just want people to watch. It's
Yeah,
entertainment.
exactly.
Yeah.
And so again, their incentive is to get you to click, to get you to freak out and be worried. And in my field, what that looks like is the people who are sharing pictures of or talking about asteroids that are going to be coming close to the Earth. Or supernova that might go off in the next million years, or that kind of stuff. Like there's anything that's going to have some kind of effect on Earth. And if they think they can get people to click to their article, then they'll do it. But yeah, and I think
that's commonplace in all fields.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, like when my kids were little, like I really wanted my kids to be better skeptics. Because we want to be skeptical of the things that people are telling us. We want to be able to always have this muscle that goes off that goes, wait a minute, right? What is the nature of this thing that you are telling me? And so we would play this game. There's a great website called Snopes where they clarify various conspiracy theories and stuff. And so we would pick a thing randomly on Snopes, and then they would try to figure out whether they thought this thing was real or not.
And, that's interesting.
Yeah, and then Snopes would give us the answer, right? And we'd be like, it turns out this is fake. Or, this is actually real, right? Like, yes, an alligator did crawl out of a person's toilet in whatever, right? And you're like, wow, that's crazy. And you learn a bit about alligators, but the point being that...
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, and I mean, kids these days are really good at recognizing when someone is trying to sell them a load of BS. It's because they've been exposed to this internet. Look at young 20-year-olds and stuff. They are battle hardened and weary.
Right. They've had so much
experience
thrown at them.
Yeah, exactly. Both watching people behave poorly in Discord and on their video games, as well as people attempting to scam them. They get 2 or 3 phone calls every single day on their cell phone where someone is trying to scam them. Like they're numb to it at this point. But and I wish there were better tools, but we all have to have this, what Carl Sagan called the baloney detection toolkit.
Right.
That we have to be able to independently, personally tell when somebody is attempting to convince us of something with inadequate evidence.
Yeah, I'm going to do a whole episode on how to raise kids that are that are curious and will question everything.
The best book on that is Carl Sagan's Demon Haunted World.
Is that really?
Yeah, it's such a good book. Yeah, that book changed my entire mind and sort of the way I looked at almost everything that I face on a daily basis as a science enthusiast. And yeah, I think
I'll take a look.
Yeah, he was mostly looking at health issues, but astrology and things like that. And I think it's very, there's some great analogies in there and just really useful. And a lot of it is absolutely prescient for the kind of challenges that we're facing today.
Cool.
Yeah.
What's your thing on life on Mars? It was habitable millions of years ago. It still has water.
Yeah.
People like to get on the internet and look at square shapes that are not natural. What's your inclination?
Well, there's no evidence there's any life on Mars. Yeah, I mean that we see funny looking rocks all the time, and I mean it's kind of amazing that all of the pictures that are being taken by the rovers are freely available for anybody who wants to go and look through them. But clearly we see funny looking clouds, we see funny looking rocks. Of course, we're going to see them on Mars as well. So nothing that anybody has ever identified in any of those pictures has turned out to be life. That it's always just a rock. And so my expectation always is that it's just a rock, unless evidence appears otherwise.
And what do you think? How would the community change or be impacted if we do find some even microbial life?
Oh, it'd be incredible. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
the most profound question, in my opinion, the most profound question that humanity can ask is, are we alone in the universe? Right? That if we are not alone in the universe, then that's, Arthur C. Clarke always said, right? Either answer is equally terrifying, because if we are not alone in the universe, that means we are just one little part of a vast, thriving cosmos with countless civilizations, each of which interacts with each other. They have their own goals and desires and wants and needs and interests, and we may or may not be a part of what it is that they want to do in their future, right? Like, this is what it has always been like on Earth, and we've seen the consequences of what happens on Earth. So that's one possibility. Scary, but interesting, right? The other possibility is that we're alone, that for some weird reason, life formed on Earth one time and one time only in the entire observable universe, that there's no other life anywhere, or practically no life close enough that it is ever going to become an issue for us. And so what does it mean that we are in this, it's like you being dropped on an empty planet Earth with no life whatsoever, and you've got a couple of seeds, and you've got a cat, and you've got some bacteria, and then, a million years later, the whole planet is filled with life that's all related to you, your seeds, your cat, and your bacteria. And so if we are alone, then we know that the sun has a time limit, that it's going to eventually heat up and cook all life on Earth, and then it's going to die, blow it up as a red giant, maybe consume the Earth, turn into a white dwarf, freeze the Earth. At that point, Earth is no longer a viable place to send out ships to other civilizations.
Right. We missed the boat.
Yeah, we missed the boat. And so wouldn't that be sad that life formed, we gained technology, we built this incredible, thriving civilization, and then we messed it up, and then nothing happened, and then this one star winked out, and then the entire rest of the universe was cold and lifeless. So if we find life on Mars, then that means that life formed, and it's not related to us. Like, there's all kinds of reasons why that life on Mars could be related to us. But if we find that there is life on Mars and it's not related to us, then that tells us that life formed independently twice on two planets in one solar system. Then life is everywhere. It has to be everywhere.
Right.
So it is.
How could it? But sorry to interrupt you. I mean, from my perspective, I have a layperson's understanding of the scope of the universe, right? I've sat in the planetariums where they zoom out, this is Earth and this is thing, and then it never ends. And you're like, wow, I mean, it's just unbelievable. How could there not be, even just mathematically, from a statistical perspective, life out there? I think my thing has always been, it's not just space, but it's time. I mean, there could have been thriving life a billion years ago. We would never know. So it's not just the matter of.
Well, it's not that we would never know. Like, that's the key. Is that there are ways that we could and should know. So but I mean, like, this is a very profound question that was asked by probably the smartest human being that's ever lived on Earth, which was Fermi, Enrico Fermi. One of the smartest people.
Sure.
And he sat down and did the math and said, the Big Bang happened 13 plus, billion. He wasn't sure, between 10 and 20 billion years ago. That the Earth has only been around for 4.5 billion years. So there's been plenty of time before us that life could have arisen across. There are 100 billion stars in the Milky Way. There are probably 100 billion galaxies in the universe. So there's a lot of open space out there, and a lot of places where this experiment could have been run. Not only that, but the expectation is that in our future, we will move to other star systems. We will build the technology that will allow us to cross the gulf to go from here to other star systems. And so you can imagine, you run humanity forward 10 million years, and we will have sent at least robotic probes, and maybe even colonists, to every single star system in the entire Milky Way.
Milky Way, right?
Yeah, like traveling at 10% the speed of light, it would only take us about 1 million years to colonize the entire Milky Way. Travel at 1% the speed of light, we do it in 10 million years. So the question that Enrico Fermi asked was, okay, if assuming that life could have started on any one of 100 billion stars in the Milky Way, and assuming that any one of those civilizations within, let's say, 10 million years of evolution whenever the intelligent species arrived, within 10 million years, it should have colonized every single star system, and that should have happened hundreds, thousands of times, overlapping over and over and over again. He asked the really simple question, which was like, where is everybody?
Yeah, that's his paradox, right?
That's the paradox. And so the first part of what you said, life should be everywhere. Like, how could it not be?
Right.
And yet, where is it? Yeah. That's the paradox. Yeah. And anybody who has like a simple answer to the paradox, back to what we talked about earlier, my guess is that you haven't thought about the problem deeply enough. You haven't looked at the research. You haven't looked at what people say and the people who've done the math and said, right, yeah, where is it? It is a troubling problem that is worthy of of us thinking about it.
Yeah, absolutely. So look, let's just get maybe to some action plan.
Yeah. I was hoping we could do this.
Yeah. So what should we do? What are some first steps we can do to get off our,
I want to talk about. Okay, I want to talk about.
What do you want to talk about?
I want to talk about action plans about getting like actually practical things that you can do as a parent to get your kids in, to
that's
do
what
space.
We're saying the same thing. We're on the same page. That's what I meant. Like, it's to get up and get your family or yourself.
Yeah. So I think the first, depending on where you live, so the first thing is to understand what kinds of sky events are happening on a regular basis. So there are things that are very predictable that happen all the time. There are meteor showers. There's like about 12 good meteor showers that happen every year, about once a month. And the best ones can give you 100 meteors an hour. The worst ones can give you 20 meteors an hour. So you can, and depending on your situation and your willingness to handle you live in Southern California, you could probably do this any time of the year. But for other people, maybe they can only do it during the warm summer nights.
Sure.
But you can identify all of the meteor showers. Those are just the greatest because you go out to the desert, you go out away from the city lights, you set up a campsite. Now you're in nature. And then you set up your cots outside or you lay on a blanket and you look up and you have hot chocolate and you just watch the sky.
Yeah, I love that.
And every minute or two, a meteor streaks across the sky and you're like, did you see that one? Oh, I saw that one. I didn't see that one. Oh, it's over there. And it takes some planning, but almost everybody, like unless you live in the really light polluted East Coast or whether you
can drive out of the city.
Yeah, you can drive, within a couple of hours you can. And so you just plan it. You know a camping spot that you want to go to, or even just like a national forest, some place that's going to be away.
You can just park the car and get.
Is there
a website that is there a website that offers locations that are optimal for this?
So the thing that I recommend, it's called the Dark Sky Finder. If you just do a Google search for Dark Sky Finder, you'll get a map of light pollution anywhere in the world. And then you just find your spot, and then you look for the better skies. So when you can identify what are going to be the best skies, you can then just go to that. And generally, if you look at the Dark Sky Finder, like yellow, like light yellow, or is good enough. You don't want to be in the really bad red and purple areas, but yellow. Ideally, if you can get to more of the blue, the green and blue areas, that's ideal. But you just want to be able to see better.
And does this fold in celestial events on that website, or is it just strictly good sky, bad sky?
It's just telling you how bad the light pollution is in your area, right? And then it's helping you identify a spot where you're going to have better light pollution. And so where you are, my guess is it's a 2-hour drive, maybe less. Where I am, I just go and sit on my backyard, right? I just go inside. So that's and those are dependable because they happen at the same time every year. Like the Perseids meteor shower happens on the 12th and the 13th of August every single year. Mm-hmm. And so, that's the best one.
What's the best resource to get out there and see the celestial events, like on a calendar?
Yeah, so there's a bunch, and I forget the name. I would just do a search for like astronomy calendar or celestial events, things like that. There's a ton of this kind of stuff out there. You just have to be active, right? Like you have to be organized about it. You got to go, okay, great. I've got a calendar. I've put the Perseids meteor shower on the 12th and the 13th of August. I've put the Jupiter at its highest inclination, and that's going to be on September the 12th or whatever. Mm-hmm. And so you've identified all of these interesting events, and they require different amounts of planning and preparation and tools that will allow you to get the best out of that thing. So, in the meteor shower, I really like it because it's just your easiest one. You You pick it, the night. It has to
Low-hanging
be the
fruit,
12th. Yeah, it has to be the night of the 12th of August. And then you know what you need, which is dark skies. And then you tell the kid, the kids know on the night of the 12th, we're going camping and we're going to watch a meteor shower. Or just even on the night of the 12th, we're going to hop in our car. We're going to drive 2 hours. We're going to go to this dark sky location and we're going to lay on the blanket and we're going to watch meteors until you all fall asleep. And then we're going to get in the car and we're going to come home. Right. I love that. Yeah. That will be a moment that will stick with them for the rest of their life.
Sure.
So meteor showers are top. The next thing is a lunar eclipse. So these happen a couple of times a year. Generally, you'll get one visible from where you are, maybe once every 2 years or so. And it doesn't matter where, you don't have to go anywhere. You just have to know when to watch the sky. Because, as long as if you know what's happening for you at 9 o'clock at night, then you just have to make sure that you're outside and you're watching the moon. And it's mind blowing, right? Because the moon gets dark, like a chomp gets taken out of this full moon more and more and more. And then the whole moon turns this beautiful deep red color. And then the chomps come back and the moon is clearly illuminated again. And so you need to identify when the lunar eclipses are going to be happening in your part of the world, because generally only half of the world gets to see the lunar eclipse. The other half, it's daytime. So
right,
yeah. And that doesn't you don't need good skies. You don't have to go anywhere. You just have to know when it's going to be happening. And so I would identify the good meteor showers. I would identify the lunar eclipses that are going to be visible to you, and I would put those into your calendar. And then there's the solar eclipses, and the U.S. just had 2 of them. They're very rare, but there are partial solar eclipses and there are total solar eclipses. The total solar eclipses are the thing you want to go to. Like nothing compares to an actual total solar eclipse. A 99% partial solar eclipse just does not compare to a 100% solar eclipse. They're night and day.
Yeah, I know people travel
you've got to travel
far distances,
right? And so there are upcoming solar eclipses. There's about one a year. The next one is going to be happening. It's going to go from Iceland through Spain, and then there'll be one after that that's going to go across Australia. And so these are trips. These are vacations. These are big, organized. Hey, everybody, we're going to go to Iceland. Right. And you're going to spend $5,000. But if you luck out and you get to see the eclipse, you've had an amazing trip with your family and you've seen something that very few people on Earth will ever see. And again, is going to imprint in their brains. So that's the kind of thing that you will need to do more planning for. And then the last thing that's sort of on a trip base, and these are all just things with no tools, right? Is to go watch a rocket launch. And you can, where you are, rockets are going out of Vandenberg on the West Coast.
We see them sometimes from far. Not
close. So the thing that's really easy to do is to go out to the East Coast, go to you fly into Orlando, and then you drive out to the coast. You drive to Cocoa Beach, which is a tourist destination on the ocean in Florida. And you get a hotel that has a view out to the ocean. And every 2 or 3 days, there's a rocket taking off in Cocoa Beach. And then you go out to the Kennedy Space Center and you can actually learn more about the rockets. And you can take buses that'll take you right out to all the launch pads. You can see all the rockets on the pads. And if you time things right, various really interesting missions are on the pad, like the upcoming Artemis missions to the moon. So that is relatively inexpensive. I mean, Orlando is super cheap to fly to. Hotels in Cocoa Beach are not that expensive, and the view you get, you can be sitting on the beach making sandcastles while rockets are taking off, and you have a perfect direct view right out to the rocket.
That's amazing.
It's absolutely incredible, yeah. And so anyone in the U.S. can do this. So that's and then I guess the last thing you can do with your own eyes is to watch auroras, and this is the Northern Lights. And this requires, depending on where you are, if you live in the sort of northern parts of the states, like say you live in Washington State or you live in Rhode Island, right? Montana, then you have a chance of just seeing the Northern Lights. If you can get apps that will alert you when the sort of geomagnetic activity is strong enough. And then you just go outside, and again, you want to get yourself to good dark skies, and then you have a chance of seeing the Northern Lights. And they are, again, mind-blowing. Everything turns right, and it's just absolutely incredible. So you want to, get the app. In your case, I wouldn't bother.
No, I don't
Right.
know. We're too far
But if
south.
you're, if you're San Francisco or more north, then there's a chance, especially right now, where during the solar maximum, you can, put one of these on your phone, get the alert. You're like, okay, kids, everybody get in the car. We're driving 2 hours to our dark sky spot, and we're going to try and see the northern lights. And most of the time, it doesn't work out great. It doesn't matter. You get out there, you look around, nothing to see. You take some pictures, no auroral activity, and you go home.
Right.
But every now and then, you do see something, and the greatest looks like a curtain of green shimmering light across half of the sky, and it's this profound experience that no picture can even take. Like, you look at pictures of the northern sky, and it doesn't look like that, because it's like an active dragon in the sky. It's crazy. So
I've never had unfortunately, I've never been able to see them, but I'm sure they're just unreal.
Yeah, it is unreal. And so then there are vacations that you can do at certain times. Like in the middle of like late fall, winter, you can go to Iceland, which is an incredible place on its own. That there's geysers and waterfalls and ice lakes and all kinds of things to explore. And also they have some of the best aurora views that you'll ever see. They have aurora chasing tours. So you just hop on a bus and they take you out and try to show you the auroras. And if it doesn't work, then you come back and have hot chocolate and, try again the next night. So it's they do it in Alaska. They do it in northern Canada. So there's a lot of places you can go. They do it in Norway. And these are all places that are just worth exploring on their own.
Right?
Yeah. And so I just highly recommend, if you want an adventure that's going to lean into this space thing and natural wonders and collect a whole bunch of stuff all together, go to Iceland or go to Norway or go to northern Canada or go to Alaska. It's incredible. So those are sort of like the stuff you can do without tools. And then the rudimentary tool that I recommend is a pair of binoculars. And you can just get like a regular pair, the standard bird binoculars that people have, or you can buy a pair of astronomical binoculars. And they're not that expensive. They're like about $100. And like they'll be like a 15 by 70 pair of binoculars. They're quite large. And those you can go out again on a regular night. When you know that the moon is up, you look at the moon through them, or you look at Saturn and you can see the rings of Saturn in this pair of binoculars. Like you don't have to do anything. You just walk out, again, where you are, Southern California, no problem. You take your binoculars, walk outside, look at Saturn, you'll see the rings. You'll see the moons around Jupiter. But
yeah, a lot of people probably don't know that just with a pair of binoculars, you could stare at the sky and find some fascinating stuff.
Yeah,
that's a really good point.
And the view of the planets and the moon, even in light polluted sky, is not that different from what you would see in really dark sky. It's like a little bit better, but it's not that bad. It's the fainter stuff that you have a real problem with. But you take those binoculars, you go on that trip to go into dark skies, and now you're seeing the Milky Way. Now you're seeing fainter star clusters and all kinds of really interesting objects. And that's where your tool to help you know what's up there becomes really practical, because you can actually like look around in the sky and see stuff and start to orient yourself and go like, oh, here's this star cluster. Here's that weird collection of stars that's over there. Here's the nebulosity in the Milky Way. But when I look in my binoculars, all I see are stars. And that's what it's turning into. So those binoculars are phenomenal. The next tool that I would recommend is you get a small telescope. And the one that's always best is to get the Dobsonian. Okay. And that is not a manufacturer of a telescope. It is a style of telescope. And it is, it's called light buckets. It's essentially the simplest possible telescope, but it's very useful and very effective. It has a mount on the bottom that can go up and down and turn side to side. And then the telescope sits in that mount. And then you can look through the little spotting scope, see an object in the sky, turn the telescope, and then look through the eyepiece and see the thing. And so it's great for the moon, it's great for Mars, and it's great for, with that, now you're seeing the polar ice caps on Mars. You're seeing the bands across the surface of Jupiter. You're seeing these, big craters on the moon. And they're not that expensive. A 4-inch Dobsonian telescope, a 6-inch Dobsonian telescope, you're looking at $300, $400. Like it's a relatively inexpensive.
That's accessible, relatively accessible,
yeah.
and you can do that from like a place like a big city.
Yep,
or do you
totally.
need to go to a dark?
Nope,
Yeah,
nope. You just do it right from your. So if you see the moon is up, you just pull out the Dobsonian and you just look at it. But because you've got it's relatively lightweight. You can pack it in the car, right? So you pull the telescope off of its mount, put the mount and the scope in the back of the car, and you go out to the dark skies, and then everything changes. Now you've got this incredible tool, and now you're seeing galaxies, you're seeing nebulae, you're seeing star clusters, you're seeing globular star clusters, you're seeing the planets in ways that you just can't see in the city. So you can sort of, again, like maximize it, right? We're going to go look at meteor showers, but we're also going to bring the telescope. We're also going to bring the binoculars, and then we're going to do a little bit of time. You know, the person who's not using the telescope, everybody else is just watching for meteors, and it's this amazing experience. And then the last tool that I would recommend, and this is sort of for more advanced people, is an automated telescope. And they're coming down in price. The cheapest ones are produced by this company called Seestar. Seestar, and they do a couple of them. One is called the S30, one is called the S50, and they are completely automated. You take the telescope, you set it outside, you connect to it with your phone, it figures out what it's looking at, and then you just ask it there's a big list of all of the possible objects that you can see in the sky tonight. And then you just say, I want to see this. I want to see the Whirlpool galaxy. And the telescope just goes and turns to the Whirlpool galaxy and then just starts building up images in real time of this galaxy that you can then look at on your phone, and you can save it and you can share it and you can share it to Facebook and all this kind of stuff. It can work. They have light pollution filters, so they can work in the city. The more time you throw at it, the better your images get. So, you know, you may want to do an hour-long exposure, but you can do a 10-minute exposure, a 20-minute exposure, whatever. And then again, they really shine in the dark skies out there. Wow. And they're not that expensive. The S30, I think, is in the $300 or $400 range. The S50 is in the $500 range.
Yeah, it's pretty accessible. It's not cheap, but it's not like, you know, it's not a bucket list item.
And then you're taking pictures that feels like you've got the Hubble Space Telescope at your control. And really even in the middle of the city, you could be like, again, where you are, you set this thing up. If it's got the right light pollution filters on it, you do a long exposure and you're getting pictures of galaxies, even though you can barely see stars in the sky. And that's thanks to you're using technology, you're using time to give you good images of what it is that you want. So that's my sort of soup to nuts.
I like it.
Get involved, take your kids, really help them appreciate space and astronomy at every level.
Well, Fraser, thank you for that breakdown. You've given me more than my fair share of time that you offered. Again, time is the currency of life, and so thank you for giving me an hour and a half or so. And keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you.
I've been following you for a while. Like I said, my brother's a huge fan, and we'll be watching. I'll put all these on our show notes, your YouTube channel and your podcast, all of it.
Wonderful.
I think it's a good resource for people, and you do some real fascinating stuff on what's the latest and greatest that's out there. And so it's an easy way to keep track of what's going on. So thank you for coming. And appreciate your time.
I look forward to hearing about your campaign with your kids. And
you know what? I may have to email you with some ask for some tips, but I will get into it. Yeah.
Right on. All right. Take care. Good luck. Keep looking up.
Thanks. Yeah. Thanks, bud. Take care. Thanks for walking the last easy mile with me. If something in today's episode moved you, good. That means there's still something alive in you worth pursuing. But don't let it end here. Send the message, try the thing, start the shift. If this episode helped, like, subscribe, and share with someone else who might be feeling stuck. You never know who needs to hear exactly this. I'm Josh Farahi. Until next time, keep walking.